Hey, how are you doing? This is George with Truck Driver Nation. So what we're going to go over today is going to be the step-by-step procedure for actually dispatching a load. And you can go to my blog, for those that just looking for content. And, I just add this stuff in here because it helps the visibility of the actual site. You're supposed to be SEO words and, helps index it, but the content is good. So like right here, this is the one I just literally made today, step-by-step guide for to dispatching. And once you click on it, obviously it opens up. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go over this and hopefully this will help you understand some of the things about dispatching. So for step one, we're going to just go step by step. So step one is going to be actually, let me see if I can fix this camera. I'm a little high. Okay. Well, I wish I was high some days, but where I'm at, they don't have cannabis. But so, anyways, get back to the point. But this is going to be a step-by-step guide to dispatching freight loads. Okay, first thing you're going to do, and there's going to be some extra stuff I'm probably adding here that ain't in this content, and I'll cover them verbally while we're going through it. One, you need to prepare your load search, and you got to have certain details in order to prepare that load search. First, you confirm the driver's availability, where they're at, and their preferences, like the type of freight, desired lanes, their home time. You don't want to run them out there and you can't get them back because as a freight dispatcher, you're meeting their needs. The next thing you need to verify that the truck and the trailer, whether it's dry van, reefer, flatbed, etc., or basically if the equipment is roadworthy, they can meet the requirements for loading the load and the overall performance of the truck. Now you need to confirm the hours of service, how many hours of service they have left available to ensure their compliance, the ability to comply with DOT based on their ELD. So do they have enough hours to run it from Atlanta to Washington State, for example, or Seattle? We'll use Seattle, for example. And the next thing, so after you get those lined up, step two is you need to locate available loads. Whether you're dealing with a direct dispatcher, I mean a direct shipper, or you're dealing with a broker, or you're dealing with load boards, you've got to be able to get your freight. Now, a majority of people do use DAT or DAT1, truck stop, 123 load board, direct shipper websites. That's going to be like CH Robinson's, TQL's, or carrier portals. Carrier portals would be like JB Hunt has some, Amazon has some, and stuff like that, where you can actually get the direct freight from them. Now you need to filter the loads based on the pickup and delivery locations. So, you got to make sure you got to be within you can pick up and can you get to where you need to get to. The preferred freight type, basically basing off that trailer, but we're also looking at weight limits and dimension. So if it's over dimensional or, if it needs to be perishable, so reefer, etc. And the rate per mile that you'll have already set up in your freight dispatcher freight dispatcher services to packet to know what the rate per mile, and that includes how much the weight limits and dimensions that they're willing to deal with on their trailer. Because remember, they got to have the tools to secure that equipment and secure that load based on DOT standards. Or I always did more because I just don't want the freight moving around on me. I've experienced load locks and get back there and produces all over the floor, and there ain't nothing like being pissed off. And the story does nothing but get worse from there. And now you got OS&D, which is over shortages and damages. Now you need to contact the brokers or the shippers to negotiate the load details to make sure that what equipment you have available is suitable for their needs and that they're willing to take that because ain't nothing like going there for like let's say a paper mill. You get there and you got a hole or there's some light coming through the roof. You sent that truck 200 miles and it got rejected. Okay, now you got to figure out where to get that trailer fixed. That's tying that driver up, tying that equipment up, and you might end up losing that load if that's possible. But usually with paper loads, you're not going to lose it. They will pretty much will hold out while you get the situation handled, and then you go back and get inspected again. Now, step three is negotiating the rate. Now, call the broker to inquire about the load rate, the payment terms, the detention, layover, and extra stop pay, accessory charges like tarps, oversized load fees. These are the things you're going to have to make sure before you get done. If you're not negotiating like detention and layover pay, that's not going to be too cool with that particular driver, that owner operator, because you need to be getting every dollar for everything that they worked. Now, use market rate tools like you can do DAT. There's rate reviews. But if you go in there and you look at the load board, you can determine what's going on based on the available loads and the available trucks to justify your counter offer. But when you're doing these offers, when you're negotiating with the brokers, for example, if I'm asking you for three, I usually do 30% over. It's always easier to go over that way because it's hard to go up after you've already, submitted some number, right? Second thing, let them make the suggestion on what that given rate is. Hell, it's their freight. Because usually the first person that speaks is actually kind of almost like the first person, the one that's going to lose the bid for what that given freight's going to go, because you want to see what's in their head as a broker to determine what they're willing to give for that load. And you sometimes can tell how tight of a situation they're in based on their need for that particular truck and trailer that you have. Because they don't want to search all day neither, but they still want to make a profit. But you can negotiate it from there, obviously. And remember, you get some dispatch say, well, we don't take more than 10%, but you better look at that 20, 30. I've seen it as bad as 36%. So remember, that's what you're dealing with when you're dealing with brokers. That's basically the range that you're looking at. But now ensure you factor in expenses like the fuel, the tolls, the driver pay before accepting a load. In other words, you need to know what the baseline rate for that given truck has to be in order to make sure that it's profitable. If the equipment's not profitable, then that's going to obviously present an issue because now they're not making money and you're still asking for your percentage as a freight dispatcher. So you need to ensure that all of these variables are covered when you're actually negotiating that freight rate. And the next thing, step four, booking the load. Now, once the terms are agreed upon, that's just you talking. Now you need to book the load. So you need to request a rate confirmation. Okay. Verify all the details in there because you're representing that given owner operator as a freight dispatcher. So you need to make sure that everything's there that is within normal business practices. Okay. If they have information about micro trackers, the actual detention pay, layover pay, fines for not being there on time, late pickup or late delivery, anything concerning lumper fees, if that's has to be one of the issues. Make sure that all that's covered so that there ain't going to be no issues once you actually, you actually settle in and you sign for this documentation. Next thing you're going to look at when you're verifying all the details, such as the pickup delivery locations, make sure that that's there. That's within the area that you should be picking it up. You don't want to get something and all of a sudden that thing has that it's 400 miles to where it needs to be picked up. Okay, you didn't sign up for that. You're trying to find it within the area of your given equipment that you have available that meet all the specifications that's needed for that load. The dates and times. Like, for example, appointment times, I would definitely highly suggest that one, don't do no closed in appointments. Oh, well, be there by 1:30 p.m. Oh, hell, you say. Make sure that it's a 3 to 6 hour window on there or first come, first serve. The low weight and dimensions, make sure that they fit the specifications of that given equipment, that truck can handle that weight based on that truck's empty, or well, they usually base their weight off of full tanks, the truck and the trailer. So they'll do a unloaded truck with that at the tank's full, and they'll actually have that weight, and that's your baseline weight. And then also just ask the driver when you're doing your agreement with them, what do you want to carry? You want to carry 32,000 pounds, 36,000 pounds, or you want to max it out at 44,500 if it's able to handle that load. Next, also look at special instructions. What kind of a securement are they having? What kind of tarps are they having? What kind of temperature control settings on your reefer, for example, do you have to have? Do you need a Conestoga, drive-in reefer for a flatbed or step deck? But obviously, when it comes to temperature control, mine's going to lean more toward actually using a reefer trailer. Number five, you need to communicate with the driver. Now, once you got your information already, it should be pretty much well settled on what they're willing to take on that truck, but you still want to, send the load details to the driver. So, and that's going to have the address, the pickup, and the delivery times on it. Also, you're going to have the correct contact numbers for the brokers or shippers, if that's in that particular case for whatever it is. And some people give that information to them depending on what the arrangement is. Or some people withhold that information because they don't want them to basically, violate a no compete or whatever situation is, people hold information because they want to keep you dumb to the fact of whatever shipper it is or whatever broker it is. Now, look at any special instructions for loading and unloading. Like you need to have a cleaned out trailer. You need to pre-wash out the trailer. You need to put the temperature on and bring that trailer down to whatever temperature. Smoke tarps, how many straps, how many chains, is it coils? Do you have to have tonnage? Whatever it might be for that given trailer and that load specs, that you've got that gear on that truck or that trailer so that they can obviously meet the requirements of that given shipper. Now, confirm your driver has the necessary equipment, like we were just talking, like the tarps and chains, and then you move on to step 6. You're managing to manage the load execution. Now, track the driver's progress throughout the trip because if anything happens, then you need to be there to pick up the slack to make sure. So if you're using GPS tracking apps or micro trackers or just ELDs like Samsara, Motive, Trucker's Path, it used to be Keep Trucking. That is actually Motive now. So that, excuse me. So that's actually Motive now. But you need to communicate with brokers and shippers regarding delays, issues, or updates immediately. Now, don't take that risk to say, oh, well, he's got X number of hours and this usually takes this number of time. And let's say it's a blown out tire. And, if you find out the drum's gone, the brake chamber's gone, something's gone, whatever it could be, in addition to that tire, whatever caused that tire to blow out. Because lots of drivers are not mechanics. They're not mechanically inclined. They've got the skill of driving equipment and loading product, and that's the extent of it. But you definitely need to make sure. Oh my goodness. Excuse me, I'm sorry. But anyways, you need to communicate with the brokers and shippers regarding any of these delays or issues, because they can put a freight guard on you. Okay. You don't need a freight guard. Now you got to go kissing somebody's ass to get that off of you. And now that makes it where the broker's just probably going to be reluctant doing business with you. And it could be just one. It don't take a lot for us to say, oh, well, we don't trust you, because they want their stuff to be gotten there. They don't want to play around with it, and I don't blame them. But you got to keep your guard up at all time. Remember, preventative is the best way to roll. Now you need to ensure all the right documentation is there. Ensure that the driver collects and sends the bill of lading. Tell them to make sure that if we get the bill of lading, that's what you can get at the shipper once you give them your pickup number and everything. But once he gets that, he needs to make sure there's the right damn load inside the trailer. I've experienced it more than once. So, and I took off with the wrong load in it. Hell, you're tired. Let's go. So you need to make sure that that's got the right load, but the bill of lading number is correct, everything on it, because remember, once they sign it at the receiver, that then turns into the proof of delivery. Same damn piece of paper, just a different terminology. So it gives clarity that now you got the proof of delivery and the rate confirmation. You take those two, and that's what you're going to be sending to the factory. Now use apps like Cam Scanner or TransFlow for faster documentation submission. Now, most people are using Cam Scanner because I want them to send that back to me because I want to get all of that done. I want to get it sent to the factory. And so it's not just the driver getting paid, but ensures that I'm getting paid myself because I have to eat too. And so we know that that's all gotten to the mix. It's used if you're in the middle of the week, early in the week, 24 hours, and they should have the funds in their account. Now, obviously, if you get it in to the factory and probably after closing time on Friday, you may not be doing a business on Saturday. You may not get that maybe till Monday or even Tuesday. Depends on when they actually look at all the paperwork came in, because you're not the only person sending stuff to factory, and they could have a stack on Mondays depending on how busy they are. So keep that in mind. Now, invoicing and payments. You need to submit that bill of lading and that rate confirmation to your factoring company or client for payment. Okay, so the actual rate confirmation company, that's the company that the driver's using to buy their bills. They're paying them a small percentage so they can go and get money so they can put fuel in that, or the client for the payment. Okay, that could be whether they're taking the bills. If they've got the money to set, for example, to do net 30, net 60, or net 90, and they just want to pay for it and they just want you to send them the bills, or they got some other way they're going to handle it. I only deal with factoring companies. I don't feel like doing all the extra stuff. I will if I have to for a client, but overall, 99% of everything just goes through factoring. Now, you need to double check that all the changes, the tension, layover, et cetera, are included in the invoice. So if your driver is experiencing any additional bills when he's out on the road, let's say, for example, lumper fees, for example, you need to make an agreement, because if you're reefer load, how are we going to handle these lumper fees? Why in the hell you're paying the place that's receiving the freight, that ordered the freight, a lumper fee is beyond me. When I was doing it, we used to unload our own freight. I get paid a lot less than the lumper would. Okay. So remember, like I tell you, ain't nothing fair in trucking. And it's just the way it is. That's the reason I tell people to become a freight dispatcher. But thing is, I was unloading the trucks. I get paid a lot less. And it just wasn't cool. But I was standing in the thing doing the same thing as the lumpers were doing. It's just a dirty deal. I mean, I can make no excuses for what they do, but you can choose to do it or not. Some people kind of mandated at some point that some drivers unload their stuff. So you got to remember, you're working for somebody. That's the reason you need to have your own freight dispatch service. You're going to make better money not being to somebody else's thumb just by you can use truckdrivernation.com, for example, and come to school. Let me get you going so you're not getting screwed over all the time. Now, step 9, this is going to be you need to um, post the load, follow up. So what you're doing is your confirmed payment has been received. That's what you're doing. And you need to request feedback from the driver and the broker to build stronger relationships. Yeah, the broker's not going to really give a rat's ass. I mean, unless he's somebody you're doing business with in and out. But ask the driver, if you're already going to know what he knows because you're the dispatcher. You're going to know how the load went. Is he free? He'll let you know, hey, can you go and get me another load booked? Or whatever it might be. They're screwing me over here. Now I got OS&D for something that I couldn't even secure those pallets because I had E-tracks in the sidewalls and I only could get back so far. So he ended up, or they didn't put airbags in it and the pallet shifted. Whatever the situation might be, you have to become a problem solver when you're dealing with these things. Basically, you're just taking all that information and data through pictures or whatever. You're transcribing it over to the broker. The broker deals with the direct shipper, and you find a resolution on who's going to pay for it. If you got overage, are we going to dump it in the dumpster, or you keep it as a driver? Shortage, how are they going to handle that shortage? Just make a bill correction with all of their permission, right? Or if you got damage, okay, is there going to be a claim, or is this something that's going to be acceptable where they'll just say, all right, write it off that this was done, and they may not charge nobody because it may not be enough to actually make a real claim, whether the carrier is going to pay it off or they're going to actually file an insurance claim. But improve efficiency, you need to track your load performance, on-time deliveries, and rate per mile. So this is just what you do after the end. This is just things that basically are in the back of your mind. So was the load on time? Because you want to know what that truck did because you're going to be giving him another load. If it look like he was tired, did he make it on time? Was it ahead of time? Did he park on the lot ahead of time? So he'd be there first thing when they started accepting delivery, especially if it was first come, first serve. Did he drag his feet, not get up? Now he's late. He's barely reaching there before the last hours of receiving a load, for example, and they shut off, even though they say, well, they're open till 3, but they actually shut off at 1 o'clock. Now he can't get in, and he got there at 1:30, and ain't no way in hell they're going to take him. Even if he tries to give them an extra $50, they just won't take it. So now you got a problem. Now he's got to sit there, and it's going to cost him money till the next day. And any loads that you had pre-planned behind that, now that affects all of that work you've already done. So that's the reason you got to decide whether you're going to pre-plan loads for drivers or not. Now, use this data to improve the negotiation tactics and maximize profit. Look, I understand what this says, and I get it, but I'm going to tell you it's bullshit. I've never once had, if you do it, you'll be like a needle in a haystack where you're going to actually use this. Now, if you're actually doing business with somebody over and over and over, so, just put it in their ear, plant that seed. We did good. They got there on time. It was great. That load came off good. Just, tell the broker, can you keep me in mind for that again? If you know when the next pickup, I'd love to have another opportunity to do another one of these loads if it pay good. And then you can kind of build your reputation up. But now, pro tips for success in dispatching. You need to build the broker straight relationships for better rates and priority access. That's a give or take. Depends if you're really if you get their phone number, their actual personal phone number, you're probably building an actual relationship with them. The rest of the time, they're probably just not going to give a rat's ass if you come or go. Now, stay organized with your spreadsheets or your CRMs. That's your customer management board. Tools to manage your leads, your contacts, and your booked loads. This basically turns into your book of business because now you're building contacts. Because remember, this whole section in this industry is based on communication and basically social networking. Okay. Now, plan multiple loads in advance for optimal scheduling. You can do this, but remember, you got to know what that ELD has been doing with that particular driver to know if they're trustworthy as well. But the whole thing behind all this is just to give you a brief understanding of how to get these loads and get everything lined up so you can get this driver loaded and keep him moving. But like I said, if you want to, like for this in here, you can go into the blogs inside my website, truckdrivernation.com. There's a lot of different topics in here that I put information in it. But if there's any suggestions anybody has, I remember I'm doing this, and it's not that I sit here and tear the world apart. This is just what I do day to day. So this is the scenario that I run through. There's always something here that I'm always going to miss for some reason. It just wasn't on my mind because, there's a difference in making this stuff up and me actually doing it, functioning in a day-to-day routine because it comes naturally because it's my natural routine. But anyways, I hope this helps you out. I hope that, this gives you a little bit more information on a step-by-step, guide for dispatching your freight loads for your owner operators. Now, where do you begin and what is it going to look like by the time you get to the end of it? So, but if you have any questions, concerns, please make sure to visit Truck Driver Nation. Give me a call. I'll help you out even on the phone. 210-343-1118, 210-343-1118, or support@truckdrivernation.com. But the contact information is at the bottom of this sheet. I think it's at the bottom of this one. Yeah, right here. Actually, you can come up here above it, and it actually has all that contact information as well. So you can go in here, you can pull me up, give me a holler. If you like this, please, I appreciate it if you hit the like thing. I'm not really seeing how it really helps me, but I'd like to see that the content helped you. So I know that I'm not just sending dead end content because, it takes me a minute to do these. I guess I shouldn't say it takes me a minute because this is what I do. So it's like I know all of it, right? So it don't take me forever because I'm basically just telling you face to face right here on what it needs to look like. But I hope this helped you out. If you need assistance, whether you need a job or want to become a freight dispatcher, whatever it is you need, or you need drivers because we recruit, or you want to be a recruiter, then let us know. Get a hold of us. We'd love to have you come aboard, work with us and, make your life better in logistics as it makes our life better. But outside of that, I appreciate everybody's time. I wish everybody have a great day. If you're out on the road, please be careful, and thank you for your time. Have a blessed one.